Hey everyone, Garbage here. Something interesting is happening in the world of Half-Life 1 because since at least 2012, this nearly 30-year-old game has been gaining players. So Half-Life released on November 19th, 1998, and by the end of November, it had sold over 200,000 copies. Valve was expecting that the game would sell 180,000 copies throughout its entire lifetime. Half-Life went on to become a massive franchise, but by the 2010s, the player count was hovering at around 3, 4, maybe 500 players on any given day. And things really started kicking up a notch in 2020 during the middle of the pandemic. If we look at it now, we can see that on a good day, this game is getting over 2,000 players concurrently. There is a slow and gradual increase in the number of players. Now, the easy cop-out answer for why Half-Life has been gaining players is because Steam itself has been growing. More people using Steam, more likely they are to come across Half-Life and give it a try. But for me, that's not good enough. I want to know, who are these people that are driving all of this growth on Steam? Unfortunately, Valve doesn't release a whole lot of statistics about who their users are. They do have their yearly hardware survey, where we can see that there's been quite a lot of growth in Linux users, probably mostly because of the Steam Deck. We also see that AMD CPUs have been gaining in market share on Steam. Again, I think a lot of this has to do with the Steam Deck. Interestingly enough, during the 2025 Game Developers Conference, Valve did confirm that for the first time ever, simplified Chinese overtook English as the #1 primary language set for Steam users during 2024. I haven't been able to find a recording of the talk, so I can't confirm it myself. That being said, in an interview from last year, an ex-Sony exec did mention that the reason why PlayStation began porting games over to PC was to target the Chinese PC market. And so if there is in fact a growing Chinese language PC market, it stands to reason that Steam, being primarily a PC platform, would also see an increase in players whose primary language is Chinese. I was curious to see if women were responsible for any of the growth, because according to the Entertainment Software Association, women now represent 47% of the total gaming population. But it seems, at least on the macro scale, PC is still a heavily male-dominated platform. But that's not the end of the story, because if we look at it by generation, we can see that PC is actually very popular among Gen Z, even more so than millennials, which is something that I found very surprising. And Gen Z, at least according to the ESA, is one of the most gender equal gaming populations out there. And so based on the data and how popular PC seems to be among Gen Z, it seems likely that a good chunk of the growth that Steam has been seeing has been from Gen Z. And because of how equal Gen Z is in terms of gender, it's very likely that a good number of women are a part of that growth. Another piece of data is that boomers seem to be more into PC gaming than Gen X or even Gen Alpha, which is pretty interesting. And so going back to Half-Life 1 and its growing player base, what can we conclude? Well, number one, it's likely that the reason why this game has been growing is because Steam itself as a platform has been growing. And the people that are driving the growth on Steam are people whose primary language are Chinese, Gen Z men, Gen Z women to a lesser extent, and also boomers, surprisingly. And of course, we don't have exact numbers or anything like that, but it is very likely that those are the types of people that are getting onto Steam, getting into the world of PC gaming, and stumbling across Half-Life 1 and giving it a try for the very first time. And honestly, I am just so excited for these new players. Right, Half-Life 1 is one of the greatest games ever made. I remember when I was a kid and the first time I was introduced to Half-Life 1, it was by a friend who was playing it on his computer, and I was captivated by what I was seeing, right? A first-person shooter, but with puzzle elements and no cutscenes. All the story was happening in real time. I had never seen anything like this game ever before. And at the time, it felt like a completely new paradigm for games. And so, I rushed to go get my own copy. I played it. I beat it. I had an incredible time. And then when I saw that friend again, I was so excited. I was like, hey, man, I beat Half-Life 1. But instead of being excited, he said, so? Who cares? That game's boring. And that didn't feel very good. I'll tell you that. It didn't change how I felt about the game, and it didn't really change how I felt about gaming in general, but it did definitely make me change the way I think about that friend. I haven't talked to him in over 20 years. If anyone ever comes to me and says, "Man, I just played this game called Half-Life and I beat it and it was so awesome," I'm going to be like, "Hell yeah, you did." How does it feel beating one of the greatest games ever made? I bet it felt real good. You did good. You know, that friend may have just decided to hit me with some random little act of cruelty. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, it was an excellent game. You know, you should play it. You should enjoy it. You should experience what I got to experience when I was a little kid.